Hello and welcome to the Mental Perk podcast, where we focus on real people, real issues, and real talk. I'm Carla Hutcherson, a licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Brandy Mock, entrepreneur, author, and community leader.
We are here to talk about all things mental health, whether it's daily stress, academic and work pressures, managing a diagnosis, or suicidal and self-harm behaviors. We want this to be a space of non-judgment, honest talk, and destigmatizing mental health issues. Most of all, we want to provide you the support, encouragement you need to win your everyday battles.
Hey there, welcome back to Mental Perk. We are so excited today to introduce a guest today, Michelle Guzman.
Hi.
Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thanks for coming. Michelle is a mother of 3 beautiful kids. She is also a wife of someone I actually had the opportunity to grow up with, Sammy Guzman. And today she's here to share her heartfelt story about losing her husband on Thanksgiving to a drunk driver. So, Michelle, thank you so much for being with us today. We really know that this is a sensitive topic, but I know that talking to the audience and sharing your story is going to help other people process through a journey like this.
I hope it does.
I really appreciate you being here. So tell us a little bit about who you are and who Sammy was, and just kind of let us know everything about you guys.
Okay, y'all ready?
We are ready.
Well, like I said, I'm Michelle Guzman, and I'm a mother of 3, and I think that's my pride and joy and my reason for being even more so now.
And the audience doesn't know, but one of her daughters is sitting here, and we're going to get to talk to her a little bit later.
Yeah.
But yes, she's sitting here with her mom.
Yes, thank you. So let's see, where do I start? I met Sammy. I was 11. He was 13, and he was a friend of a family, my cousin's best friend. And we would go to my aunt's house for family functions. She had the pool, so everybody go over there for the cookouts and stuff. And I met him, and it was everybody teased me because they knew I had this huge crush on him. So that's how it kind of started. And then we kind of fast forward. I was a senior in high school, and my cousin got married, and Sammy was the best man.
Oh,
So he went to the
It's
wedding.
a love story.
it is a love story. It started so long ago.
Yeah,
No,
no,
a
I
little
remember
Taylor Swift going on here.
I remember like literally praying that I would marry him one day when I was in middle school, and he had no idea that.
So I was
had this
wondering,
huge
did he
crush
have?
on him.
He had no idea.
No, when I told him later, I was like I used to write Michelle loves Sammy on my books in middle school. It was I had
used
it
to do that
bad.
too.
I had it bad, right? So
You did have it bad.
I really did. So whenever I saw him, I was a senior in high school. Like I said, he was marrying. He was the best man at my cousin's wedding, and of course, my family members are giving me the shrug and remember Sammy, and they remembered I had this big old crush on him, and so I was like, yeah, but whatever. I was 17 at the time, so I didn't know that he had asked my cousin for my number, but was waiting until I turned 18 to actually.
Yeah, he's
call
like,
me.
she's a minor.
Somebody taught him well, right? So, he waited. We talked a couple of times, and then he literally waited till after my birthday to actually ask me out. And our first night out, it was just met with some friends, but I do remember that our nightcap was a Whataburger, and he ordered a double meat burger, and I was like, yeah, I'll have that too. And he's like, aren't you supposed to be like embarrassed to eat in front of me? I was like, no.
You're supposed to have a salad or
Yeah,
something?
no, not me. But it was just so comfortable, and so like I knew that I was supposed to be here, and it's kind of silly, but it's our little love story. So
I think it's
love
great.
it. The
I
famous
love it.
Whataburger, right?
Everybody in Texas does Whataburger for a first date, don't they?
Yeah, I know I do it. It's the ketchup.
right? Mine was a
loves her
gravy.
ketchup.
I love my ketchup.
So yeah, after that, I mean, my cousin got married in May, and we were married that next January.
Wow.
It was
That's
like
quick.
It was just like you just knew. It wasn't even. I think I remember driving down the street with him, and it was raining one day, and he looked over at me, and he's like, "Well, we're gonna get married, right?" And I'm like, "Okay."
Wow.
back in those
You're like,
days-
yeah, we are. I've been counting this day since I was 11 years old. You're absolutely.
Like my heart is beating fast, and I'm like playing it cool. Oh yeah, sure. No problem.
It's so funny because back then, you had these quicker engagements, but nowadays it's like, oh, we're engaged for 5 years, and then we're going to plan this wedding for 3 years. It's just
Yeah.
like it takes forever.
She's like, I've been waiting since I'm 11.
Oh yeah, it's time. Let's go.
Fast paced, this sucker.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I was 18, he's 20, and we really grew up together. We were babies getting married, but it just
It just felt right.
yeah, and it was everything felt like it happened quickly, But now looking back, I feel like it had to happen that way.
Yeah.
You know, we needed to get that all in there.
Yeah.
In that time that we had together, which I didn't know would come abruptly to a halt. But anyways, we had our days and had our 3 beautiful children, and he worked, and so I could stay home with them and, be a stay-at-home mom, and it was great. Of course, every marriage has ups and downs, but
Of course.
we got through it.
Yeah.
And he was a dad that was just there, took the kids to the soccer games, was the soccer coach, was the assistant coach, just there, even after working all the hours, he'd show up, he would work, 10-hour days and then side jobs and weekends, but he was at the birthday parties and he was there when it mattered. And
He's very hands-on.
yes, very much so. And it was just how he was.
And he was funny. I remember him being funny growing up. I don't know. I mean, he was just a funny little thing,
Always, I always told, when we first got married, he would come into a room and he doesn't know a stranger, he talks to anybody, right? And he would, if there was a line to cross, he was going to cross it with the first thing that came out of his mouth. And,
no filter whatsoever.
Not at all. And that's one of the things that I love. But I remember at the beginning of the marriage, kind of, he's just kidding. Like kind of warning people, he's just playing with you, don't worry about it. And then it was just like, that's who he is.
Yeah.
And he has a good time no matter where he's at.
Yeah.
And a lot of people love him. A lot of people hate him, but he's just a good guy.
Yeah.
Just all around, like you said, he goes in the room and he laughs. I've never laughed so hard. He's just so funny. And I think that was another thing that really drew me close to him. He's just no filter, fun. He is what he is. Never afraid to tell the truth. I mean, there was one time we were at a friend's house and I think I can't even remember who it was, but somebody came up to him and was like, I just took a drink of whatever it was I was drinking. And she was like, I'll ask Sammy, he doesn't lie. Am I fat? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And he's like, well, you could stand up, just kind of told her. And I was just like, oh my gosh, mortified. But then I'm like, well, she asked. She knows him. She knows him. So that's on her. So, yeah. So
I love that.
It was fun. We had a good time. And we did have our kids early. Like I said, 18 and 20 when we got married. My son was born when I was 19, and then my daughter born when I was 21, and then our last one at 23. And it was hectic and it was tough, but we did it. And it was something we were proud of looking back that we got through those days.
Your young parents growing up.
Absolutely. That's amazing.
Awesome.
That's wonderful.
I'm so happy that I have that to look back on and to know that we did that together and this is what we did. And then we have our 3 kids and I look at them and I'm just so like, we did that. Wow.
They're beautiful. Yeah.
And I know everybody thinks their kids are awesome, but mine really are.
Yeah.
I do not doubt that one bit. Nope.
So
it's really great to kind of hear a little bit about him before we really get into what happened and what changed your world. And so I think that's really appreciated because it shows just that a whole side of him that the rest of the audience doesn't get to know. So that's awesome. Well, tell us a little bit about that Thanksgiving. What was happening? And what year was this?
2016.
2016.
Yeah.
So it's been 7 years.
It's been some days it feels like it was just yesterday, and sometimes it feels like it's been forever. But I worst day of my life, but I got through it. With the grace of God, and here I am to talk about it. And it's just. I remember he went the weekend before. We had a birthday party on that Sunday before Thanksgiving of our godson, and we went out and had a good time. It was a good day, and video of that, and just not knowing that was the last time, but now knowing that was the last time. So we were around a bunch of family and friends, which was great. That Sunday, Monday, we took the kids out to eat to the sushi place, a hibachi place, and coming back, it was, Christmas carols on. I love Christmas music, so the kids didn't like it so much. Yeah, right. No, I'm that person. So the kids were moaning. He's like, "No, Mama wants to listen to this. We're going to listen to this." And so we actually had just started working together. I was like I said, I was a stay-at-home mom, and really didn't have to work. Had little odd and end jobs, which was great. But he was like, "Hey, we need some help at the office. You want to come in?" And a lot of people thought, "Oh, you're going to work together. That's never going to work." But I loved it, even, just seeing that side of him and just being at work with him. We drove different cars and we had our own schedules and stuff like that. But I'm really, again, one of those things that I look back and think, thank God I was able to do that for the time I was able to do that. Anyhow, he went to his dad's lease. He's a hunter and wanted to He'd go out there the week of Thanksgiving. He took the time off. They came back on that Wednesday. Alyssa and I were there making some Christmas treats or something to do with Christmas, getting ready, putting the tree up and stuff. And he got a call. He was an electrician, project manager, and he got a call that somebody needed his help. And there was workers around there that he could have called and said, hey, take care of this. But he's like, hey, it's the day before Thanksgiving. I'm just going to go do it. So he did. And that ended up being the last time I saw him. And the next thing I know, I'm getting a call from my daughter. I'm laying in bed, and I get a call. And you get that call at that time. It's not good news.
Yeah.
And I heard her voice, and I knew something was really wrong, but I was just thinking, but she's okay. I can hear her. And I reached over in the bed for my husband, and he wasn't there. And that's when my heart just sank. And when she said, Daddy, I knew something was really wrong. So I was trying to get to where she was really quickly. And I remember coming up on the scene and the cars.
So, and just to clarify, you had talked about Alyssa was with you at the house doing Christmas stuff. Did she go with her dad in this situation? Or?
No. So he left to go take care of the service call that he needed to take care of. I believe Alyssa was going to Whataburger.
I hear a theme here.
She was there meeting some friends that had come back for college, and so knowing that I was asleep, we were getting ready to do the turkey trot the next morning for Thanksgiving. I went to sleep early. I think she was having conversations with her dad.
Okay.
And that's how they kind of met up. Come to find out that he ran out of gas, and she took gas to him.
Okay.
Or she'll clarify that whenever she talks. I'm not exactly sure. It's a little fuzzy. But she said they're shaking her head. No, that's not how it happened. But what I remember of it is I got a call from her. I show up, and I remember looking, and you got all the lights and everything going on, and it's just.
Now, where was this? Tell the audience where was this
less
at?
than 3 miles from my house, right off of George Bush and Miles.
Wow.
It was right there.
And about what time was this?
I think almost 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was Thanksgiving Day.
Now it's Thanksgiving Day, yes.
Thanksgiving Day. You're pulling up. You still probably had no idea what had happened. I'm sure Alyssa was beside herself.
Yes.
So you're getting up to the scene, and what happens at that point?
So there I'm just kind of looking and trying to find my husband and my daughter.
Yeah.
With all the lights and policemen and firemen, and cops are running up to me, and I'm just finally make contact with Alyssa, and I see where she is, and I'm going. But I remember seeing his truck and seeing that it was okay, and I was like, okay, that's good. Kind of assessing the scene as I'm getting there kind of deal, and going over to her, and this part is a blur. I just remember hugging her, but then turning around and looking at the truck and thinking, wow, like, it was mangled. It was not there. And my heart sank once again. And I just kept telling them, I need to get to my husband. We need to go to the hospital. I was trying to get out of there. They needed to ask questions and do the things that they have to do. And I just kept saying, I just need to get to my husband. They were telling me he's at the hospital. At that point, I knew it was really bad. So I started making phone calls to his brother. Actually, I think I called my son first. I knew he was at a friend's house, and not even knowing what happened, the first thing I told my son is, have you been drinking? And he was like, no, what's going on? I said, okay, I need you to go to the hospital. Your dad's at the hospital. They're not letting me and your sister go right now, so I need you to be at the hospital so your dad's not by yourself.
They weren't letting you go?
No, they weren't. They had questions. I don't remember exactly why, but they would not let me drive. And I don't know if it was because of the state I was in.
Yeah.
And they thought, no, she can't get there, because we ended up getting a ride from the ambulance. They put us in the back of the ambulance and drove us to the hospital.
So what hospital did they take him to?
Methodist, right there off of Renner.
Okay.
And, they drove us up there, and it was, they drove us to the wrong part, and we're trying to get in there. And as soon as we get there, we see one of his brothers, and he told us that he didn't make it.
Oh, my gosh.
And I just can't, this can't be real. This can't be happening. This is not right.
Yeah.
And the doctor came in, and he said, are you Miss Guzman? I said, yes. And he's like, I'm sorry. I said, just take me to my husband. I just need to just take me to him. I didn't want to hear him say anymore. Just take me to him. And, you know, in the walk down the hall, I remember bits and pieces, but just still almost like I was floating.
Yeah.
And not really there, but there. And then just seeing him. I don't remember later. My son told me that I screamed. I don't remember screaming. I don't remember. I just remember seeing him and just shaking my head. No, this can't be right. And I can't do this. What am I going to do? I can't do this without him. And being there and wanting to just totally fall apart, but seeing my daughter and my son there, knowing that I needed to keep it together. And it was, you know, making phone calls after that and just people getting there, and everyone was just couldn't believe it. I still to this day can't believe that it just like that.
And at that point, so I know Alyssa's with you. I know that you're trying to take in, it's tunnel vision, I'm sure, at that point.
Yes.
And you're right. I think a lot of, and the therapist over here can tell you, which I love. Carla's always a good insight to people's reactions and stuff. But I know when you're in that moment, it's like the cloud you're talking about. And you know, the hard part about that is you're trying to, you know, keep your emotions in because of your children, but I know inside you're probably just wanting to completely explode, correct?
Absolutely.
Did you have any idea at that point exactly all the details to what had happened? You were still just, get me to the hospital, let me be with my husband. And until you got to the hospital, you didn't even know he'd passed.
No. I didn't know anything. I didn't know the circumstances until later of what had happened.
So you probably just went into task mode. I've got to do this. I've got to do this. I've got to do this.
It was that, but then it was also like, I just remember, and now looking back, I know after some therapy that I know that it was a bunch of denial that I was in. I was not wanting to see that, and it wasn't okay, and I couldn't make it okay, and my mind definitely couldn't understand it. My heart was not having it.
You were going through the emotions, but you're in your head, you're like, this is not real.
No,
this is
it
not
can't
real. I'm
be.
going to wake up any moment now.
I wanted to.
Yeah.
I wanted to wake up, and it was just like seeing everybody there. It was, you knew it was real, but I just didn't want it to be, and I didn't know how to make it stop.
But I think that's the way of your brain and your mind taking care of you in that moment. Because if you really admitted it was real, you don't know what would have happened. And I think that's why we are geared to do that, to really kind of disassociate in that moment and just focus on what I got to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I do remember at one point this wanting to just take it in and look at him and see him. And just, I can't describe in words what it was, but I knew I just needed one more minute. Just give me one more minute. When the coroner came in and they were going to take him, you know, of course they were like, sure, take all the time, but I needed one more minute with him.
Right.
I didn't want it to be over. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to go home because I knew that then it's going to be real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I leave here and don't take him with me, this is happening.
It's a nightmare. It's a bad dream.
It
And
really is.
the jokester in him, you're probably hoping he was
Yeah.
just, I hate to say it, but there's a part of you that knowing Sammy was probably like,
Yes.
is this a bad prank?
There was a note that I have to share, just kind of a side note there, that because he was like that, I was thinking one day I was at the cemetery and I was talking to him and I thought, wait, this is Sammy. This has to be some type of reality TV show, and he's gonna,
Gonna pop out behind.
He's gonna pop up and say, you know, I did it. I'm sorry, but it was because now we get to move to wherever, live, whatever.
Yeah.
I just really thought that, you know, it was not real, and it took me a long time to accept that it was real. I knew it was real, but I couldn't accept it.
Yeah, that's that
It's
brain.
that process
yeah.
of grief. Yeah, it is. It's tough.
And I just had to, and it was weird because I remember driving home by myself, even though there was a family member. No, let me take you. And I was like, I need to do this.
Yeah.
I need to drive home by myself.
Yeah.
I just need this time. And of course they followed me or whatever. And I drove home, but there was like a sense of calmness that I didn't understand.
And I have heard my patients say that before. There is a sense of calmness. It kind of sits in as you're trying to go through this process of what are the next steps? What do I got to do? And you get into that mode of just really being driven and before it really hits you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what it was. It was like the calm before the storm type of thing.
So you you've gone through all this. At what point did you find out the details to everything to where it just really, it became real? Like and the process, walk us through that process of what you found out and how you felt, those emotions, how you dealt with your children.
Yeah.
You know.
So that night we got home, and me and the kids, we all slept in my bed, and it was just, come here. And I think I might have had a little pep talk in them that I don't really remember, but just kind of, hey, Daddy would want us to get through this. We still have each other, and we have to be strong. And I'm going to be strong for you, and I need you to be strong for me. We're okay. We're going to be okay. And I think I said what I said, but I felt like he was pushing me. Sammy was telling me, giving me the words, or helping me. Like, he was still there, and I knew what I had to do. I didn't want to, but I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I think, is when it really hit me. I had friends come over that were going to do the turkey trot, and they
didn't know yet.
No, they didn't know, and so I had to tell
gosh.
them. And that's when it became, oh my God, this is real. Like, now I have to
So
tell
they showed up
people.
on your doorstep,
Yeah.
ready to pick you
They're
up.
like, hey,
A normal
Sammy,
day for them.
You know, Joe was like, hey, Sammy ain't answering his phone. It's not like him. And then he saw my face, and he's like, what's wrong?
Oh, my gosh.
And I had to tell him. And it was just like, we cried there in my driveway, and I went back in, and I think that's when it finally hit me. This is really real. He's not coming back. And then shortly after that, a state trooper came to my house. I believe it was shortly, could have been hours, I'm not sure. But he came to my house, knocked on the door, and asked some questions, and said that he had been on the scene. He took all the pictures. He was going to be there when it was time for the trial, and if I had any questions,
And you're like, trial, what do you mean?
Yeah, and so that's when he said that, you know, he kind of saw the look on my face, and that's when he went, and he said, that let me know that he was a drunk driver.
And they arrested him on scene that night,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay.
They did.
So what were the details that you learned about that as far as, you know, what Sammy was doing? You know, we'll get to listen a little bit because she's going to be a guest on it. But what was it you learned from your point of view that the conditions and what had happened at the scene and how they found out he was drunk? I mean, was the drunk driver injured whenever he hit Sam? Or
No.
Okay.
He was not injured. I don't know how he wasn't injured. I remember pulling up to the scene after he told me that, and I knew there was another car out in the distance, and I saw him kind of there but didn't pay attention to who he was or what he was doing there. So what I gathered was Sammy had ran out of gas, and Alyssa and him went back to fill his tank up so he could get home. And the driver just came out of nowhere and hit him going, you know, that George Bush is 70 miles an hour.
Oh, my gosh.
And later, actually, a year ago, we finally went to trial for this guy, and we got to see the footage of that happening. And it was...
It
was
just
horrible.
made you feel those feelings all over again.
Yeah, it's unreal, and it's I can't even describe it because we have drinks, you know, at dinner and stuff like that. But I was, you know, Sammy had drinks with his friends, but I always made sure that I drove, and we had these conversations, like, and I would tell him, don't ever drink and drive. Like, you know, what if you hurt yourself, or what if you hurt somebody else? You know, so that was something that I've always just naturally, when my 16-year-old kid would start going out, and I have that conversation. Yes, you might get in trouble, but do not get behind a wheel. Stay there.
Yeah.
That's just something I've always instilled in my kids, my husband, you know, everybody. There's no need.
Yeah.
There's no need.
There's
to do
Uber,
that.
there's Lyft, there's all these other options now
100%.
that
No reason for
you
this
can,
at all.
yeah.
And you know, I notice I have a lot of college-age kids that come in my office that are my patients, and you know, I'm noticing how responsible they are about that. They really do a good job of doing the Uber and the Lyft situation because you know, we didn't know about that when we were growing up.
Well, it's such an added tool.
It
I
is
mean,
an
there's
added
no
tool.
excuse to get in a
Exactly.
car now
Exactly.
and drink and drive because you've got these, and it's 24/7, right?
You know, they're planning. If I'm going to drink, I'm just going to Uber, and
Yeah.
I think that's just such a
Yeah.
great skill that
smart.
people are
Like,
using.
why do it when you don't have to?
Right.
So it was so that's what brought out, I think, the anger about it, because it didn't have to happen. It shouldn't have happened.
I mean, even with a death, you're going to go through the stages of grief. And so one of those is going to be anger. But when you have a situation like this, the anger is intensified.
Yeah, it's unnecessary, right?
Yes. So you have the anger of grief, but you have the anger of this injustice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
So the process of everything, once finding out it was the guy that hit him was drunk, was there anybody with this gentleman?
Yes.
Okay.
His wife, I believe it was his wife that was with him.
And you find out about him being drunk. What was the next process? What was the next step after? I mean, so you're in between finding out that Sammy had been killed by a drunk driver, plus you're trying to figure out arranging services for Sammy. I mean, you're getting hit with a ton of stuff at one time. Plus, you're trying to cater to your kids that are grieving at the same time. Did you feel like you had all the support around you that you needed to help you kind of walk through all that?
I did. I think that's what helped me. That's the only reason I was able to get through it. I think it was largely because I felt I had to do it for my kids. They didn't have their dad anymore, so it was me. They're stuck with me, and I have to get out of this bed.
Yeah.
What were the ages of your kids at this time?
At the time, Alyssa was 18. Andrew, our baby, was 15, and Sammy Jr. he was 20 at the time.
Still really young.
Yeah. Old enough to understand, but it was it was tough.
Yeah.
It was a tough situation. And I think for the most part, I couldn't handle knowing that it was a drunk driver that did it, because it made me so angry, and I didn't have enough room to carry that.
Yeah.
I had so many other things to carry. I think that kind of anger and what I felt towards that came later. And that's one thing at the very beginning that I just gave to God. I was like, I can't take this. I can't take this on too. I can't have hate in my heart right now. I have to learn how to live independently, first of all. I have to plan a funeral. I have to make sure that my kids survive this. I have to try to survive this. And so it was just too much for that.
So did you put the hate aside for a little bit?
Yes.
Did it ever come back or
I did. It did. It really did. Especially because, like I said, just last year we finally went to trial.
So he
was free 3 days later.
Wow.
And that's where I think, there was so many things that Sammy missed, and knowing that this guy was out there just living, that was infuriating. Anytime that it was at the back of my mind, and it did, I knew that he was still there, and he still got to be with his family, and he still got to do Christmas that year, and he still got to hug his kids, and he still got to go to his kid's soccer game if he the things that my husband didn't get to do, this guy is out there free doing.
Wow.
So this happened in 2016, and the trial just happened 1 year ago? We're talking 6 years later?
Yes.
So for 6 years, he lived freely?
Yes.
That's just insane. And why was that?
I could not tell you. I know COVID played a part of it, but I don't know why we talked to we even switched DAs. There was, because I guess they kind of rotate, and I think there was 3 different DAs that we talked to.
Wow.
Before the one that took the trial, which I think, again, one of those things, looking back, I'm glad we ended up with who we ended up with. They were awesome.
It was meant to be that way.
Exactly. And that was one of the things I think, again, that I just had to be like patient with, and I knew that no matter what, it wasn't going to bring my husband back.
Did you feel with the trial that justice was served? Did you feel like there was an ending to that?
I think it gave me some closure. I knew that no matter what he got, again, it wasn't going to bring my husband back. It wasn't going to make anything okay or better. But yeah, there was a sense of justice there, because we had heard that it could be that he could walk free. He could just get probation. He did end up getting 5 years of jail time, which...
But just 5 years.
Just 5 years.
5 years
For a
and
life.
children's lives changed. The wife is a widow.
Yeah.
Everyone's life's changed forever.
Everybody, even
Forever.
his own family,
Yes.
and I know that, I'm just going to say, for me, if it was me with the same situation, I got to say there's a lot of strength in someone like you that can say, I'm going to put the hate aside and not feel the way you feel because you're so focused. I mean, I don't know that I could have handled straight up 6 years of
but
waiting.
the hate takes you down a dark path.
It does.
It really
Sometimes
does.
you can't get out of it. So the fact that you were focused on your kids,
It's huge.
You had to stay away from that.
I had to.
Yeah.
It was one of the things, like I said, I just didn't have room. I didn't have room for the hate. I couldn't do that. I couldn't carry that. I had too much other things and more important things going on that I needed to be there for.
Yeah.
But I still think it's a process, even 7 years later, that getting angry, those feelings of anger still come, at the weirdest times even probably.
No, and last year during the trial, I think that was when I started feeling a lot of hate. And because now I wasn't numb anymore, like when Sammy first passed away and I went through the denial, and there was times that I just had to act like it wasn't true, because, he's coming through that door any minute now. But I think that time passing and then revisiting, that time last year was very hard because there was no numbness anymore.
Yeah.
So, and going through the worst day of my life for 3 weeks.
And reliving
it, that was
well,
really
and I'm sure at
taxing.
that point you're getting a lot of the facts that you never really even saw, right? You're hearing firsthand accounts from Alyssa and maybe other people, but they're giving you screenshot views, step to step.
I think
So
there was 119 photos that we saw, and just
my
video
gosh.
after video, because a lot of it was, there was sort of cameras all over 190, and then cameras on the cops, and so we got to see it all, and that's when it felt like 5 years is not enough.
no.
Not enough.
Was there any remorse by him, his family, anybody reach out to y'all?
No, never during the time. He did try to apologize when he was on the stand, and he said the reason he didn't is because his lawyer advised him not to, because that's an admission of guilt, and he was trying to not get any kind of jail time or get any kind of anything. So then that's when he apologized, but it felt like, oh, you're apologizing because you don't want to go to jail.
Yeah.
And, that's when the anger was really like,
Wife, nobody in the family after
ever.
that?
They said that they made an anonymous donation to us. I don't know. I didn't see it, or I just don't know how you do that. I think there's no way I could have not, had the situation been reversed, not gone to this family and cried with them and hugged on them and just been so remorseful. So it didn't feel
Authentic.
at all.
Yeah.
So that just made me even
Harder.
Yeah, it made me more angry towards him and the system, and the fact that he got to stay free for 6 years. And, I try not to let myself go there because it is a lot. It still is a lot to take on.
And I think a lot of times when we're in a situation that when you have this anger that is rightfully yours, right? And you should be angry on these situations because such an injustice was done. It's like you think about the process of forgiveness, and you're like, sometimes you have to go through that process in order for yourself to move on. Mm-hmm. Not so much about the other person, but so that you're not holding on to all the hate. Is that something you've thought about or felt or experienced?
And I think that's what it was. I know during this whole time, and I'll tell anybody, it was never me. If it was all me, I would still be in the fetal position on my bed crying right now.
Right.
I know it was God that helped me. And I got back into the church, and I went through the counseling, and I faced it. I didn't know what to do, so I needed the help. And that was something I was not scared to go out and get and tell my story and talk about my feelings, because otherwise I don't know that I could continue moving forward, because it was just too much. So I know that it was God that helped me, and going to church and listening to the verses and going to a grief group and hearing other people tell their stories and feeling like I had somebody that felt that with me, and I knew that it was okay, and what the feelings I was feeling, they're okay, and it was valid, and it made me feel like I needed to tell it, and I need to get these feelings out. I need to let myself feel and process, and I still do. I mean, you don't forget about it. I still carry that grief with me each and every day, and I accept it. And I have my days where, you know what? I don't do Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is a day that I will let myself feel all the feelings and go to the cemetery and scream and cry, and I allow myself that day. And I have to do that sometimes several times a year, sometimes several times a day. I have to I will call in and say, I need a mental day.
Yeah.
Because I just can't get out of bed, and I'm going to let myself feel this. I have to let myself feel this and get it out, whether it's being angry. Mostly it's being sad. I just really miss him, and it's still so hard, even though it's been 7 years, to function without him, because he's the one person that I needed. Mm-hmm. He's the one person that made my life better. Mm-hmm. He's the person still that I need to talk to, mm-hmm. and I need to tell him this. He's the person I still need to help me raise our kids. Mm. And I can go talk to the cemetery. I can go talk to the grave, and that's what I do. And it makes me feel better. As crazy as it sounds, but it's
not crazy at all.
I think it's
for me,
I got to give you kudos to this, because I'm sitting here hearing you talk about, you could have chosen the fetal position and just not done anything. But the fact that you're sharing with the audience, you chose to get the counseling. You chose to be with the grief groups to where you could relate to someone. You've chosen not to let the anger get you, and you've also chosen to identify there's days when you're going to be angrier than others, and that's okay, but you're choosing to process through it, which a lot of people, Carla, you can say
100%.
They don't do that, and it just becomes...
She chose the gift of life.
Yes.
And she chose to give that life to her kids. Yeah.
And I do it, I think, yes, absolutely, but I do it because I feel like that's why I can honor my husband. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'd like to talk about him. That's why I continue to get out of bed. That's why I go to work, and why I continue to breathe on the days I just don't want to. I do it for him. I do it because he loved me. I know he loved me. I know he would want me to go on. I know he wants good for me. He wants good for the kids, our kids. And I get to do this, something that was denied, so I have to appreciate it.
Absolutely. And he loved life. He seemed to live every moment of life. And, of course, he's going to want you guys to not give up. Yeah, 100%. I want to talk about some eye-opening statistics. And I just looked at these today, and 37 people die by a drunk driver in America every day.
Every day.
That means that's one every 39 minutes. And that's just eye-opening to think that how much this is still going on when we have so many resources. And 31% of traffic fatalities involve a drunk driver. And that's such a high percentage. And so it is so important that we raise some awareness to this. Is there anything that you and your family are doing regarding drunk driving? I know there's different organizations and things like that. Is that something y'all have looked into?
We teamed up with MAD, but it's not like it used to be. So it's not something that we really have been able to find. You don't hear about it anymore. It's almost like it's just accepted, almost, unfortunately, because it shouldn't be. When you read that, that's crazy to me. It's senseless. Why is it still happening when you do have so many other outlets and like you said, Uber, taxi, anything where you don't have to do that? It should not happen. It should not still be happening.
Yeah. And it's still such a huge problem. And so I'm hoping that through this podcast, we raise awareness, we help people understand the importance of being responsible. If you're going to go out and drink, have a good time, but be responsible.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's not just your life on the line. You have to be considerate of others' lives. And that's so important. So I'm hoping that we're getting that message out today.
Yeah. And so before we close out, is there anything you want the listeners to know about just how you're living now, or any advice you'd give the audience?
Yeah, no, I think it's just, what I would say is let yourself feel the feelings. A feeling is a feeling. It's not wrong. And to take the days that you need. Grief is something, what I've learned, it's not something that's ever going to stop. Mm-hmm. It's not something you get through. Mm-hmm. It's something you live with. And to me, grief is like your last act of love for the person that passed. And so I embrace my grief, and it wasn't like that all the time, but I've learned to be like, okay, this is it. I'm going to let myself feel it, because I can feel it. And it's like days will come up, and sometimes it's just out of the blue, and it's there, and it's just like the elephant in the room, and it grows and it grows and it grows to where I can't breathe anymore. And then I know, okay, I need this time, and I'm going to accept it, and I'm going to face it, and I'm going to take this day. And so I think that's something that I would want people to do. Just take your time with it, be in it, sit in it, but don't stay in it.
I love that.
And it is. I think it is a process. And I am a therapist. I've never heard anyone put it so beautifully what grief is. I think people get so scared of grief, and they're like, I just got to get through it. I just got to get through it. And the fact that you just said it's your last act of love. And I think that is just such a beautiful statement.
It is.
But it does honor your husband in so many ways. I mean, you're not falling short, and you're not living life because of your grief. It's just part of what you do every day, And so I think that's such a beautiful way of describing it for people that are going out there and they're through it, to let them know hey, you can live with it and you can still have a good life.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Michelle, we are so blessed by your story, and I know our audience will be too. This is our part 1 of this story. Our next part is going to be their daughter, Alyssa. She's going to be sharing her perspective as being on the scene and how it affected her and how she's doing right now.
Thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me share.
If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health issues, please reach out to talk to someone you trust. Get connected to a mental health professional who can help you find ways to cope and ultimately feel better. If you are having suicidal or self-harm thoughts or thoughts of hurting another person, please go to the nearest ER, call 911, or contact the National Suicide Hotline at 988. Thank you for tuning in to Mental Perk. We hope our talk today highlighted real people working through real issues based on mental health. Our goal at Mental Perk is to make sure every one of you knows you're worthy. We're in this together.